to the world of Swahili-speaking people. Kama sivyo cha mtema kuni au sio bana? Ukweli ndio favorite yake wewe utumia hiyo, alafu yeye inakufanya kazi gani? Lakini hii ndio maneno. And have a fantastic adventure. In this episode, our journey will take us to the eastern coast. We're gonna discover the African culture known as Swahili civilization. Au sio bana? Hatujawahi kuona hiyo kitu bwana. Ndio tuambie hiyo mbegu toa Zanzibar bibi. Zanzibar sio bwana? Hiyo ni utamu kama gani? Utamu kama bana kawaida tu. Kama imezidi pia. Ya kupindukia yani au. Ya kupindukia yani. Au sio bana? Yeye unauzaje mkungu mmoja hivi? Hapo unauzaje? 300 mkungu mzima. Kilo. Yani kama hii inakuaje? 300. We will also discover how Arabs and Portuguese began the international trade of slave Africans. Welcome to the show. Stay tuned. Good afternoon, viewers, followers. Today we have stepped in at a place called Fort Jesus. It's an historical place, well known in East Africa because of its history. We have plenty to discover inside today, and I'm not alone. Here with my two best friends here, Mr. Muhammad Bakari and Mr. Dunga. We'll present to you the history of East Africa slave trade, or Indian Ocean slave trade, or Arab, so-called Arab slave trade, but it was not only Arabs. Many other nations were being involved in these slave trades. And also Mr. Dunga gonna elaborate a little bit about the transatlantic slave trade, which is gonna be a subject of its own. Welcome to the show. Stay tuned. My name is Noor Ismail, nozzle diesel engineer, filmmaker, storyteller. Join me as I share my passion for building trucks and traveling to the remotest part of northeastern Kenya. Then I will push you out. Yeah, I'll make you feel like nothing but a stranger now. This video, please subscribe and remember to hit that notification bell to make sure that you catch up our weekly series of videos. Welcome to the show. My name is Noor Ismail, engineer, filmmaker, storyteller, and here we are today, Mr. Bakar, our guide of the day with Mr. Dunga. And here, this is an illustration of Fort Jesus. Back mic to Mr. Bakari.
So you're most welcome, and this is the most historical site in the history of Kenya. Here we have the model of the fort. So as you can see it from aerial, it has head, shoulders, the body, and the two folding legs. So once this part, it was a coral mountain about 16 to 18 meters above the sea level. So foundation is solid coral which was carved as a wall. More than 3,000 forced workers, which were slaves, were used to build the fort, and that's why it took them only 3 years.
Good.
Yeah.
And this is the only episode of Across Kenya Overland trip. Remaining, we're going to give you full detail of this historical, because we're talking about the East African or transatlantic slave trade or East African slave trade. Today, we're going to give you the last episode of our Across Northeastern Kenya Overland road trip. And here we are with Mr. As you still continue, we're going to see Mr. Dunga is with us, still preparing the report to submit to you guys. I hope you enjoy the show. Stay tuned. Now, from this point now, I think the viewers have already enjoyed to know the summary of this place we are in right now. It has a form, as I say, form of Jesus. That's why they call it Fort Jesus. It has a head, arms, legs, and
The
so
body.
it's a complete form of Jesus on so-called. All right, let's move on. So this is done.
Yeah.
So this is all this place is an historical place, and each room has a story to tell, isn't it?
Yeah,
Good. So let us start from this point, isn't it?
yeah.
In 1498, the Portuguese explorer Vasco da Gama met Malindi authority to sign a trade agreement and hire a guide for the voyage to India. When he erected a coral pillar, Vasco da Gama was given a warm reception from the Sheikh of Malindi. Some sections of historians claim that the reason why rulers of Malindi welcomed the Portuguese is basically due to their rivalry with the people of Mombasa. Vasco da Gama is so famous because he discovered the sea route to India that opened up many opportunities to the coastline of Kenya. Stay tuned.
So 1498 is when Vasco da Gama and his colleague, they didn't know where's the sea route to India. And the Suez Canal, which was not yet opened, it was opened in 1869. So they were to come all the way around Africa. They were looking for a place where they could get fresh water, some food supplies, and also a local guide to show them the way to India. But finding the people of Mombasa, they were unfriendly to them. They had to sail about 120 kilometers north to Malindi, is where they established their first settlement or factory along the coast of East Africa. But Mombasa Natural Harbour attracted the foreign attention, and the Turkish expedition built a small fort in 1589. For more than 100 years, the Portuguese northern headquarters had been an unfortified factory or settlement at Malindi, and however the appearance of the Turkish ship in the Indian Ocean and continues to be unfriendly of Swahili of Mombasa convinced them that they could not allow the best harbour of the coast to be the base of the enemy. That's why they decided to attack Mombasa. But 2 weeks before the Portuguese attacking the town, the cannibal tribe from the neighboring country, they crossed to the island, killed the people in the old town, and take those who were injured as their food on their way back. So after 2 weeks, the Portuguese, they attacked from the seaside. The town, it was already weak, so there was no resistance from the people of the town. They killed adults, took young kids from here, trained them with their soldiers in India, thinking it will be the easiest way for them to conquer Mombasa. So the Sultan of Mombasa at that time, when those kids were full grown up, they were brought here, and one of them crowned as a king. So he was Sultan of Mombasa. Yusuf bin Hassan had been educated and trained with Portuguese army in India. Also became a Christian named Dom Jerenimo Chingulia, but he prefers Muslim named Yusuf bin Hassan. So he entered the fort using a passage here with a band of 300 followers, announced that he wishes to make a private visit to the governor of the fort. So while he was talking to the governor of the fort, he took out his knife and killed the governor of the fort. Then he gave signal to his followers outside the fort to set fire to all Portuguese houses in the old city. Some Portuguese soldiers took shelter in a mission house, but Yusuf's army attacked them and killed them. So after 2 weeks, all the Portuguese soldiers were killed, and the Sultan of Mombasa retook the fort without much trouble. So you can see the foundation of the fort. The foundation is solid coral which was carved as a wall. So it is believed that the coast of Kenya about 2 million years back, it was covered by sea, and that's why we have this dead coral. If you see it shining under the sea, it's still alive. If you see it in different patches of color, it's dead coral. So they choose the highest point, about 16 to 18 meters above the sea level. So foundation is solid coral which was carved as a wall. The upper wall were added using coral chips, red soil, and lime cement. The thickness of the wall is about 3 feet. That is exactly as the building in the old town, even if it's hot from outside, but it will be cool from inside. And as you can see the color, that is original Portuguese color. They painted that color because locals, they used to chew betel nut and split red dots on the wall. And the Portuguese think it's better if they painted the whole village in red color. So if they keep on splitting, it's just like repainting. The passage down here They use it as a secret passage for supplying heavy goods, like the cannon guns. It was covered, the ceiling supported by wooden beams, and on top of the passage is commandant house. Very secure area, guided by the high wall in front. So we'll see the ammunition store, which is 2 small stores which were carved underneath.
As we're going.
Yeah.
This is the ammunition room.
So this is the ammunition store. All ammunition were kept here. About 170 soldiers were to be based inside the fort. So these are 2 small stores which were carved underneath. 2 small stores. There is an end just there, and there is an end just here.
Okay.
So this is loose sand, kept here for 431 years. Used to be a loose sand, but kept here for 431 years. It became solid, and this is the place where they used to put explosives.
Explosive.
Yeah, explosives.
Okay. Good. As we still continue with the exploration expedition in Fort Jesus, here we go. Yes, welcome to the show, Mr. Dunga.
Thank you.
Back to you.
My name is Dunga, and I'll take you through a very short session of slave trade. That is the main area of
Center stage of our discussion.
Sure. And it's a very long story, but just to take you through in brief, the Indian Ocean trade has been having theory where people used to think that it was actually initiated by the Arabs. But we have again to consider other areas that were also affected for the same, such as in West Africa, where we have also gone through the information of transatlantic trade.
Yeah.
Transatlantic trade actually developed at a time when there was need to have laborers to work in the sugar plantations in South America, and that's how now, these slaves on transits across Atlantic to Latin America. They then worked on these sugar plantations, and sugar product was thereafter transported all along to Europe, and in turn the Europeans brought whatever they had from Europe in form of manufactured goods to West Africa.
So it's what we call it a triangle trade.
Yeah, that was now the triangle trade.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that was the triangle trade.
Yeah.
Even though before that, or between that period of time, there had existed the silent trade. And this silent trade was actually involving the people of North Africa and the people of West Africa. It was called the silent trade because there was no communication. There was that particular communication barrier. So the Arabs from the north, who were called the Berbers, used to walk very long distance across the Sahara, and those from West Africa also used to walk long distance to a certain point where the distance was shared equally, and then they used to hide their products. From West Africa, they had gold. So that parcel of gold could be hid somewhere, and then those from North Africa, they could come also. They could look at the weight of the product that was on the exchange, and then they could also come and bring their salt next the basket or the container of that particular gold. So how they communicated, the one who had first actually brought his container could actually see if there was that equivalence and the weight was equal, then they could actually pick that particular product. Let's say now the Arabs could not pick the gold, feeling that they were satisfied that it was equal to that of the soda that represented. That's how this was called a silent trade. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the transatlantic, a little bit about
Yeah.
the transatlantic business there. Yeah. We're not what about talking about now. Let's just now talk about the East Coastline or East African slave trade. What do you know about, what have you heard, what have you learned so far about the slave which has been busy, make the coastline of East Africa too busy by connecting the Middle East and Asia?
First, in fact, let me take you through section of the roots. We are talking of who are the people.
Yeah.
Because if we shall be talking about this, that means we have to know who these
Yeah, who are the
communities
people,
were.
who are the trailblazer? Or
The people of the East African coast. The first groups of visitors were the Persians.
Persians.
These Persians
From Iran?
came from the Persians who now we call them the Iranians.
Iranian, yeah.
These Persians came and intermingled with the indigenous communities of the East African coast. And during that particular activity, they interacted, they intermarried. There emerged a very strong dynasty that was called the Shirazi dynasty. So through that Shirazi dynasty, there also emerged a very powerful sultan of the time who was called Sheikh Vita, and probably that's how the name of Vita is today. So from there came other groups of people as traders, and that therefore resulted to having the 12 clans of Mombasa. And from this level now, the incoming Portuguese, with time, we are now seeing that much had been happening along the East African coast and the Indian Ocean coastline. So for slave trade at that level, these traders thereafter, who were mostly from Middle East, they were also long distance traders, whereas they used to come with the products such as porcelain, silk, carpets, weapons like swords, of which they used to exchange with that of the people of the East African coast, whereas they obtained ivory, heads and skins, rhinoceroses, among other precious commodities. But because they were long distance traders, they were not only looking for their products within the coastal cities, they had at times to penetrate to the interior, and when they arrived out there, they were welcomed by the local chiefs. So these local chiefs handed over strong men after they had been given some goodies, as mentioned, such as weapons, swords, dates, and in turn, these strong men could assist these Arabs to carry their ivory along the caravan routes to the East African coast, whereas these commodities were as well on transit to Zanzibar. So because of internal conflict that was there by then, as most of these African communities were at civil wars, the Arabs thereafter gained advantage of invading these villages at night by setting their homes ablaze, and they used to capture these strong men. So that's how slave trade actually grew.
So the Sultanate of Zanzibar,
Yeah.
at that time, that was their base there, or they've been based this side?
The Sultan of Zanzibar moved his capital from Muscat to Zanzibar, and among the reasons why he had to move his capital were, one, he noted that Zanzibar was, it had a very better climate compared to where he was coming from, being a desert. So for that then, he got quite a number of achievements. One was that he made Zanzibar an entry port. That means he welcomed all the Europeans. So when we talk of missionaries, when we talk of settlers, all these came through Zanzibar. He also made Zanzibar, and he also welcomed the British, and he also established the clove plantation. So slave trade here comes in at a time when now this clove plantation needed workers to ensure that the production was high, as it was also profitable to that particular level. Yeah.
What about the trade business of spices? It has been very common in this area as well. It was, Zanzibar, I think, is known by that. It's called what?
Karafu.
Karafu,
Spices,
Karafu,
yeah.
yes, Karafu.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, when Said actually initiated that particular plantation, and as he was getting more profit the Europeans also wanted to take part in that particular activity. That's how there was that particular clash, because to the British or to the Europeans on the other side, they saw that the Sultan of Zanzibar was actually gaining more from the territory, and they also wanted to come and also ensure that they participate in that particular activity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, in terms of this slave trade as well, do you think, according to your understanding, point of view, does also the chief contributed greatly to slave trade of East Coast of Africa?
Yeah, local chiefs participated or they contributed to a slave trade. And when we talk of local chiefs, we are talking of local chiefs of those communities in the interior. Because along the coastal towns, each town has its own hierarchy of administration, it has its own system of government, and to that particular level, they were so much involved in trading with the Arabs. So they were so much close, they interacted closely with those from Middle East in terms of trade. But for the local chiefs, because the Arabs were long distance traders, they used to penetrate with the interior, very long distance, with their valuables.
Yeah.
So they used to exchange these valuables with the local chiefs, who
In return.
handed over strongmen to assist them. But with time now, because of internal conflicts, was when the traders now gained advantage of invading the villages at night to raid and also capture these strongmen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think there could be another way, if it was you at that time, to make a different decision which could not affect our ancestors to suffer? There's already another alternative to be done at that time? Or there was only one way to be sacrifice them as commodities?
Okay, it was not a matter of looking at the sacrifice. We are looking at the mentality of the community, of the people that time. People by then did not know anything to talk of dialogue. These days we come to a dialogue, we meet our head of states coming to a dialogue, we meet our governors coming to dialogue, we meet our members of parliament coming to dialogue. But you getting
that room of Barza, it seems like that was a dialogue at that time.
I'm coming to that.
Yeah.
We tour guys, we sit, we come to a dialogue. Those days there was no dialogue. People those days were only focusing on invention.
Invasion, yeah.
Yeah. So to invade means meant the stronger.
Forceful.
Yes, the stronger survived.
Yeah.
If you are weaker somewhere, the stronger ones could actually invade you, and then life continues. You are even assimilated, and at times you become probably a slave within that particular community.
But it's also happening even now in the 21st century.
So, I don't know. So that is what happened. That's why if we look at the history of most of our African countries, starting from West Africa, looking at Uganda, the Baganda Kingdom, that was so powerful compared to the others. It was the same story. And it is the same story if you look at the history of China. If you look at
even the French as well, they have that invasion.
So it was a worldwide mentality of the people that time. They didn't know anything to do with dialogue.
Yeah,
so it was a matter of invention. It was a matter of invention.
Okay, I think we have learned a lot about what was disturbing us to wanted to learn about slave trade and who is which part to be blamed. Now we see something is balanced because that was the mentality of that time. So it's very unfortunate also to blame or to point finger on white or Arabs on who. That was a business at that time. But to reach a point where they say now, I think 19th century, now when people start protesting now, slave trade no longer be active, but the colonization still was on that continuation.
The colonization, the activities that were carried out, and the systems of administration, there was some elements.
Yes, some elements.
It is something that was in the blood.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But it was gradually phased out.
Yeah.
Until maybe until 1960, that's not completely was.
Not that it is that particular activity.
Yeah.
But the mentality of the people.
Yeah.
It still have some elements of that even now.
Up to date. So it was a really fascinating story to get from Mr. Dunga. Even I think you viewers have enjoyed too to know the story of our continent, what happened to our ancestor, and then really I think we are not even wish again this thing to happen again because it was really a suffering. put people like animals, treat them as an animal, but it was really, really very, very dangerous and try to be harmful to our ancestral. And then I think now you get completely of the pending episode of transatlantic slave trade and East African slave trade or Indian Ocean slave trade. That was the package remain to share with you. But remember now, the new series of video are coming up is the series of Kilimanjaro. I thought people who are still planning to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, you have to subscribe right now. Click the bell button so that when the video is uploaded, you're gonna watch and plan. Because I'm seeing many vloggers, many YouTubers, they've been giving us the summarized report of Kilimanjaro. But what we're gonna give you is full year details of the challenges faced on Kilimanjaro mountain. So better subscribe now, click the bell button. So we're going to give you in detail, meticulously what Kilimanjaro is and is about, and so that you can plan well physically, mentally, climb the highest peak of Africa with the 19,000 feet above the sea level. Here we go. Bye.
This video, please subscribe and remember to hit that notification bell to make sure that you catch up our weekly series